righty. So I want to go the next level after talking about gatekeepers last week. And I'm just feeling hi, Emily, to kind of go back into some of the spiritual contracts. Remember, we talked about rejection. We talked about some of the other spiritual contracts that we make. And as I was pondering on, all the different types, this is the journey that I'm on, is understanding and unpacking all the different spiritual contracts that we make, whether they are consciously or subconscious. And God started taking me on a journey about addiction. Now, I think people that have addictions, particularly drug addictions, are very misunderstood. And I think they are demonized and penalized. What's the word? Penalized. Oh, I need a coffee. Too early. And without us fully understanding. So I'm going to unpack what a contract of addiction is and how it operates, but also we can have addictions not even knowing or being aware of it. And it'll be interesting to see some of the aha moments that we have in this conversation. I'm not going to talk about so much the drug aspect because that's another subject on its own, but I want to just unpack this one for you. So the word addiction actually means it's characterized as a compulsive, physical, emotional, and mental need to engage in a certain behavior. So, what is a contract of addiction? A contract of addiction is an energetic, emotional, or subconscious agreement that keeps a person tied to substances, behaviors, people, patterns, and emotional cycles. When they are even when they consciously want to stop, it's like they can't break it. They can't break it in the natural because, as we know, we've got to deal with things from a spiritual aspect. It is not a weakness. It is usually a coping mechanism and agreement formed during pain. Now, let that sink in for a minute. It's a coping agreement formed during pain. These contracts form because somewhere in their mind, emotions, and I'm going to say energetic systems, right, made the addiction feel necessary. It can feel like protection. It can bring soothing. And it's familiar. And it's safer than facing pain. So as I've unpacked some of this, I'm going, all right, I'm always reflective. I'm going, do I have any addictions? Do I do any of this? Okay, and I've got to reflect and say, well, honestly, yes, there are some coping mechanisms that I go to. Now, I'm always quick to go into the spirit, but there is sometimes some physical outlets as well. And one of them is I really enjoy walking around the shops. I don't have to buy. I'm not necessarily looking out of greed or need. It just does something for me. I don't fully know the mechanics of it. And some women, oh yeah, we were born to shop. Well, I don't need to shop, but I do enjoy it. Now, if I am going through stressful circumstances where things are coming at me, I walk around the shops while I'm contemplating things in the spirit, go hand in hand for me. Okay. So some people go to food. Some people go to alcohol or a beer with the boys, and it becomes a pattern. And that pattern is it can turn into an addiction because of what it creates in them. Okay. So my latest adventure has been, I have discovered pickleball. Now, can I say, guys, I love pickleball. I enjoy it so much. It's a game. It's a bit like tennis. It's a bit like ping pong. But I've always enjoyed ball games. I've always been a basketballer. I've always been a sporty person. But the last 10 years, I haven't really done very much of that. It has been very caught up with family and other people and other things. So I've discovered pickleball. Well, I love it. And it is a good addiction to have, absolutely. It's keeping me fit. It's great for my mental capacity. I've met some amazing people that I have a lot of fun with. But I've only been playing it a couple of months. If I'm not playing pickleball at least every couple of days, I'm actually going through withdrawals. I'm like, I've made a joke. I'm going, I'm a pickle addict. But it's good for you. It's easy to play at any age, and it's a lot of fun. And if you want to meet community of just, having a bit of fun, and you're not looking for deep relationships. It's just having a bit of fun, and it's good for your health, and it's good for you. It really is on so many levels. So if you've never played it before and you hear about it, go and have a hit. You will enjoy it. We can all become pickleball addicts together. So, part of it is when we do the things that kind of shift us out of our situations or circumstances, it can be a bit of an emotional escape, right? And that's okay. We all need them. It's just how reliant we become on it. In other words, if you're drinking every night, if you drink to dull your emotions or your mind, that we're getting into a different kind of contract. And that is one that where entities and we'll actually look to ride on it and also solidate it. In other words, to consolidate it, to make it part of you, which then they hook onto to make it part of your personality. And then they can then come through you in that situation, right? So if we touch on, people that are drug addicts, they get out of control. They get angry. They get violent. They get destructive. They can be. It depends on what they're looking for. It's got entities attached to that, and the entities are to cause destruction and to do harm to that person. So, addiction often begins as a survival strategy. Okay, so if you're looking to find soothing, or you feel that it's going to protect you, or it's a counteract for not facing some of the pains that you're holding within you, the hurts, right? Then this is where we've got to stop and evaluate. We've got to look at our actions. Always be looking at your behaviors, especially if it's something new. Like, why did I behave like that? What's going on for me? So these are, you know, again, we're in this journey of God fully engaging with us to bring us to a higher level of connection with him. And if you want a scripture for that, it talks about it in Isaiah, where he's come to heal the brokenhearted and heal those that are wounded and to bring hope, right? So sometimes our addictions can come out of a wounding. Like, I know so many women that have shopping addictions, right? They buy clothes that they just have in the cupboard, still with the price tag on them. They have a compulsion for spending. And it's because I've worked in retail, it's very interesting to see how it actually shows itself, how it actually outplays. But, you know, people spend for a reason. Some people spend just for the sake of it, but mostly it is because they are trying to appease something that's going on with them emotionally. And it's good to be aware of this. So the safety or the survival mechanism is wanting comfort or emotional support. And the system or your system creates an agreement. It says, this helps me survive. This numbs the pain. This is the only relief that I have. I know of a lady who's married to a very wealthy man, and he often used to go and have an affair. Now, every time he went and had an affair, she would buy herself a very expensive piece of jewelry. That's how she compensated for it. She didn't want to leave him. She didn't want the marriage to end. And to accommodate his need and addiction, really, and honestly, not very nice character, is she would go and buy herself a very expensive piece of jewelry. And I mean expensive. So I guess in her mind, that was his punishment. I don't know. But I was like, okay, that's different. I know that's not what I'd be doing. So this becomes a subconscious contract, right? And this is, you know, trauma and nervous system override. Trauma can lock the body into cycles of anxiety, numbness, overwhelming. You know, addiction becomes the regulator because they feel dysregulation. In other words, they feel out of sync. They feel out of control. So it helps them feel like they are in control. It's a regulator, and it's like, I need this to function. Okay. And this is how the mind forms that contract. It is a belief system. Obviously, buying the jewelry was a form of, this is how I function. This is how I get through it. This is how I deal with the rejection, because that's what would be underlying in that lady. So she's compensating with buying herself something of great value. So these patterns can be learned as well. They can be family or environmental patterns. I find it really interesting that, again, I'll go to the pickleball analogy, is there's certain languages that start to come up. Everyone's starting to speak the same language that you develop, you know, around the court, or, you know, what the terms are. And I always found this really interesting when it came to different jobs, that every job has its own language because it has its own environment. Now, there are some places you won't fit into because it is counter your what you carry, your energy, your frequency, your vibration. Like, I'm going to be extreme here. Have you ever walked into a in a certain type of gang? I'll call it a bikie gang. Have you ever walked into their clubhouses? Tell you do not want to be there for a minute, because it's very heavy. It's very, just they all seem to be angry, and they all seem to be, ready for a fight. They're all bustling, someone says something wrong, they all jump up out of. It's very interesting to walk into. I do not enjoy that atmosphere. Can I tell you that right now? And I certainly wouldn't be looking to put myself in that atmosphere or that vibration. But someone that's hurting, someone that feels angry as well, that's how they connect. That's how they pick them up, because there's a like type frequency and energy that they connect to. So, and again, because in every environment, you meet different people. There are some people you'll connect with, and there's some people that you don't. It's because of what they carry and what you carry. But I often find it interesting that those that tend to have similar type of addictions gravitate together. You'll find one female that has a shopping addiction that will meet up with another female that, guess what? She has a shopping addiction too. And off they go to the shops together. So I don't know what men do. I guess they're the ones that go for a beer, because I'm not a man. But there would be, yep, let's go to the pub for a drink. And there became a culture here in Australia that every Friday after work, when men got paid, they would all go to the pub and drink their wages away. Now, in the olden days, I don't know if you know this, that the pub used to also be the grocery store. So they would basically take the men's wages, fulfill the women's shopping list before the men drank all their wages, so that the family wouldn't starve. Because they would just get into that environment where, yes, it's the end of the week, it's the end of hard work, and they would just get drunk and drink the wages away. And it's like, the concern for the family would just go out the window. So pretty business entrepreneur for the pub and grocery owner. Yep, you work all week and you bring me all your money and you drink, and here's the food for the family. Interesting, hey? So growing up with addiction can create inherent agreements. Now, this is some of the agreements, and I've heard people say this, well, this is normal. This is how we grew up. This is how we live. Or this runs in the family. In other words, why should we change it? Or this is how we cope. And then this becomes a deep spiritual but also emotional script. This is how they justify their actions. I've dealt with people that do drugs, and I ask them, I go, what do you get out of it? Well, the voices in my head stop. I feel calmer. I don't feel so anxious. I don't feel so afraid. And, I have the conversations with them about, but there's another way to deal with those things. And they're not capable of comprehending that because of the lies that they tell themselves. And I'll unpack a few other ones. In other words, if they feel unworthy, their mind may bind to addiction as a form of self-punishment. I don't deserve better. This is what I get. And, and I've heard this. This is one of the deepest beliefs that is a lie, is that, well, this is all I deserve, because why would God bother with me? Or this is my lot in life. This is what God has chosen for me. I've heard though people speak like that. I'm looking and go, wow, this is where the misconception of who God's character is and who he is for you keeps you in a contract that is contrary to his purpose and heart for you. And it keeps the addiction active. It causes people to avoid truth, pain, and responsibility. In other words, yep, this is all I deserve. So I just keep going down this road. Yep, my life's always chaotic. This is how I deal with it. Or this, I just accept it. I kind of feel that we need to start going, God, what is it that I should accept and what is it that I shouldn't? And who remembers the plaque where it says, God, give me the wisdom to accept the things that I should, and and I just go, there's a lie in that. In other words, I'll just keep accepting what I'm given because I think or I believe that it's God's will for my life. These are some of the lies that we bind to, and then we're trying to find or appease or numb the feeling that we have on the inside. And it does. Addiction causes numbness. It's a distraction or an avoidance. The subconscious forms the deal. As long as I do this, I don't have to feel. I don't have to face what happened. That's why often after a deep trauma, a lot of people go to alcohol because they're trying to numb the pain that they feel within them. Especially if it's one of sexual abuse or molestation. It's how they're trying to cope. They're trying to deal with what's happened to them. They can't understand it. Their brains can't comprehend what's happened because it's so contrary to how we were created. We are not created to be used and abused. We are created to be loved and cherished. That is God's heart for us. And often the addiction becomes part of our identity, where we're saying, well, this is who I am. Now, this can be a cop-out as well, simply because, oh, yep, this is how God made me, and I'm just going to be rude and obnoxious and if you don't like it, well, suck it up, bad luck. That is an excuse of not dealing with your issues, your attitude, and expecting everyone else to put up with it. Addiction is part of their identity. Well, this is my life. Well, I can't change. These are identity-based contracts. And often they are the strongest. And they often are based in a victim mentality. In other words, they are justifying their victim mentality. And when people are victims, and they often are, can I be honest, they are the hardest people to work with to get freedom for them. Because what happens in that identity connection, it becomes part of their personality. And again, this is where entities will make sure that it stays that way. They will set that person up to constantly be a victim. So it cements that victim identity and that victim mentality and then that victim personality. And it's interesting, victim personalities, they want help, but they don't ever want to help themselves. In other words, they don't ever want to do the work. They don't ever want to take responsibility. And they're the ones that want you to wave a magic wand and change their lives, but you can't change your life if you don't do the work from your innermost being. What you carry on the inside reflects into your world. And I sit back and I see it happen often. And as much as I encourage or, try to speak to them about a better way of doing life, ultimately and always it is free will. What happens with the addiction, it fills the space where something is missing, where people don't feel connection, where they don't feel purpose, or they don't feel comfort. They don't feel love, and they don't have meaning. Until the emptiness is addressed, the contract stays active. So this is, again, going back to what I was saying. When they have this belief system that of, victim, and this is my life, and, this is who I am, and nothing can change it, it's all covering up the lack of purpose and the lack of connection. But can I say this? Often those that have a victim mentality, they find purpose in people running after them, right? They like the drama. They like the chaos. They feel that, if something's going wrong in their life, they get attention. And then that feeds some of those things temporarily of what they're actually looking for. Their spirit is looking for connection. Their spirit is looking for purpose. It wants every single one of us wants to connect to love. That is how we are designed. But the truth is, we are love because God created us. And because God is love, we are love. And often we can look for outside of those of that truth to try and fill something that's already within us. Self-love is really important. And sometimes some of the addictions that I've talked about camouflages the fact that you need to come into more self-love. If you realize that you are lacking connection or you lack purpose, we all need purpose, but we often look to the things of the world. In other words, when I've got a better job, when I've got a better car, it's a similar cycle, guys. If we're looking for, that trophy wife, or we're looking for that trophy husband, so that, I can feel like I have worth. And the minute those things are taken away, what is standing? The greatest truth that you can step into is finding out how you weather completely on your own? Do you enjoy your own company? Can you do things without other people? Or are you always looking to find people to fill your life? Remember the first thing that I talked about. A contract of addiction is either substance, behaviors, people, patterns, and emotional cycles. So people, people are always, oh yeah, I've got this meeting to go to and I've got to be here and I've got to do that. And they're always creating, making sure people are around them because they actually don't enjoy their own company. They're looking for validation from people around them. Behaviors, different behaviors. And I find that behaviors is, what am I running from? What am I trying to achieve? Is there an emptiness in me that I'm trying to fill? These are the questions to ask yourself. So I'm going to go into how to break a contract with addiction today, but I just want to stop for a minute. Is there any questions on what I've shared just now?
Yeah, Dottie, addiction can also be caused by pain, physical pain, and people take drugs or whatever to get away from the pain. So they get addicted because of physical pain that they're in. So I just think that's another way that the addiction comes about.
Oh, absolutely. And I did say that. It helps, it numbs the pain. It's the only relief I have. It helps me survive. Like there's so many, subconscious things that we can validate. And there is always trauma at the beginning of an addiction. There is a hurt, a trauma, a sense of not feeling worthy or good enough, a sense of failure can often kick in an addiction. So I'm just trying to kind of open up our mindsets to be aware of some of the other things that can happen. And this does also, allow entities in. And we talked about last week about being gatekeepers. This is another tool of being a gatekeeper of your life. As in, what am I doing? Why am I doing what I'm doing? What am I getting out of it? And it doesn't mean that you can't get joy and pleasure out of it or, a fulfillment. Is it driving you? Is it taking you away from finding fulfillment in the spirit? Is it a distraction? Is it a substitute? People go to church because they feel that that's going to, give them a purpose and fulfill their needs, but it doesn't. Often, and the saying goes, hurt people hurt people. And I find often churches are filled with very hurting people. And often it's and I don't want to generalize this, but often you find very broken people in churches because they're looking for answers. But I have not felt or seen that religious platforms actually bring answers. I feel they bring a lot more condemnation and guilt. That's what I've witnessed. No, and that's not every church. There are definitely pastors, there's people that genuinely have a heart for people and they do it right. But I'm talking about the big corporation churches their agenda and their purpose is not to bring comfort. I find they often prey on those that are hurting and broken. Lisa.
You gave with behavior, you said, what do they run from? And with people, the example was looking for validation. And then you mentioned substance. Could you also give a kind of example for that? Is that like using drugs or so? Or?
Yep, absolutely. Drugs, alcohol.
Okay.
Look, food is
Food,
an addiction. A lot of people don't realize that while they're hoeing down these big meals, there's actually an emotional healing that needs to happen, and they're trying to fill that void with food. And sometimes, and can I just say that often can come from their childhood, because if they haven't been a well child, or they're unsettled, mothers often shove food into the baby's hands. Do you know what I mean? Now it's iPhones, but back in the day, it's food. And I see this too, kids, and especially when sometimes I do some stints in shopping centres, and it's like you see the same mother with the same children doing laps every morning, and the kids have got lollipops in their mouth. That's the soothing mechanism. And honestly, the shops have worked out really well, because they put all the candy on the exit because kids want candy. It's done on purpose. So then they chuck a tanty because they want candy, and then their mum's forced to buy it on their way out. This is how the shopping centres manipulate us.
Can I say something, Dottie? What I noticed, and we talked about it on my work one time, also a bit like this, because there was a lot of addiction. And actually, it was mentioned, and I thought it was a good point, that in the early days of the children, it's already starting, because if a child falls, then the mother says, "Oh, come here, you poor little child, here you get something sweet," right? And then they start thinking, okay, that's manipulative. So, I was falling again, Mama. Oh, please give me something. And then the mother says, oh, yeah. And my mother always gave a kiss on it, right? She said, oh, did you hurt your knee? Kiss on it, and then it's gone. But you could also give a kind of carrot or so, but nobody does that, right? They always give lollipops. So it starts a very, very young age to, it's
Absolutely.
like comfort eating, or what is it called? Like compensation. Yeah. So that's good.
Absolutely. But the thing is, some of us don't grow out of that.
No, yeah.
That's what this is what I'm trying to bring awareness to. There are patterns that we do subconsciously that we don't grow out of. So, this is where awareness brings the change.
And Dottie,
and so if we can acknowledge, or God brings awareness to what's going on in us, then that brings freedom. It's not always the big things. Sometimes it's the little things that trip us up. And I want to really, bring clarity to this. God cares about the little things in your life. He absolutely does. He is concerned about every aspect of your life. And this is, again, I've gone to church on Sunday, so I got my fix for the week. And that's where they leave God. They don't take God through the rest of the week with them. And then they try and pick him up again on Sunday, and then they go, well, God's not working for me. It's like wrong concept, wrong understanding. And this is, again, a programming. How many of us, particularly if you're around my age, is we had to go to church every Sunday. There was no getting out of it. It was like, if you didn't go, the devil was going to get you. So, you know, church was used as a fear platform because guess what? We had to go there to fill the seats and fill their coffers. But there was never really a true connection with God. It was never presented that we can have a direct relationship with God and we can have direct communication with God. And our relationship with him is not the communion of a little piece of bread and some wine. It is every day. And the symbolisms that we have been taught is actually not who God is, nor does he want it. And I can say that because it says scripturally, if you want to pull out the 10, have no idols. And yet the churches are full with statues and idols and rituals that is totally contrary to the relationship that God wants to have with you. He is personable and he cares about you. He cares what you think. He cares about what you say. And he cares about what you do. And again, churches, well, if you sin, doesn't matter. Come and confess. And then they use the confessions against you. The way that the whole system is set up is so contrary to who God is and his spirit. And the more we can talk about that, the more we'll break that spell off the earth. So let's talk about, we might not have time. Is there any other questions?
Hey,
No?
Dottie,
Okay. Yep, go.
can sleep, how about sleep? Does bad sleep habits?
Absolutely. Bad sleep habits often come from anxiety. Are you suffering from a mind that can't calm down? Yes?
Oh, myself?
Yeah, I'm asking. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes, but it's, I was in the army, so, I was used to a certain pattern of sleep. And
Okay.
I've been out of the army for about 4 years now, but it's, I don't think that my mind doesn't, uh, uh, I don't think that my mind doesn't shut up at night these days. But sometimes I like me personally, like I like to get a lot of things done, and I'll just keep pushing through the night, if that
Okay.
makes sense.
So you don't go to bed, is that what you're saying? Or when I think you're just a very, very busy person in your mind. If you're always pushing to get things done, you're always processing, you're always on the go. So regardless, some people need a lot of sleep, some people only need a little sleep. But to get good sleep, can I suggest this for you? Is that before you go to sleep, I want you to take all your thoughts captive to the power of Jesus. And then God promises us good sleep. He promises us that we can have beautiful sleeps. So that is a promise. So if you're capsulating the things that are going on for you and breaking any negative entities or anything that's interfering with you that is not allowed to be there, then that will help you get to the root of why you're not sleeping properly. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So that's the process. It's the same as, you know, if there's things that I need to do while I'm asleep, then I prepare myself for that as well. So, but for you, it's because God does a lot when we're asleep. We can get some amazing downloads. We can have dreams about what the future looks like. Like your sleep time is important and it's to be valued, but it's also to be protected. And a lot of things, if you are someone that has, like I have lots of dreams, I get lots of insight, I have to protect my sleep, that it doesn't get interfered with. Okay, so, you know, there's nothing wrong with having a busy mind, but it's good to be able to process it from a place of peace and a place of wisdom and understanding, so that you get the fullness of what your mind is trying to share with you. Now, some people are afraid to go to sleep. And that addiction to that's an addiction to being awake. Then they need to deal with what's stopping them from having a good night's sleep. Does that help?
Yeah, appreciate the insight. Thank you.
Yep,
And
no
the
worries.
tips.
Okay, if you have further questions on that, I'm happy to help. Sandra?
Yeah, no, I want to appreciate that question
Yeah.
that A brought up. I find that my son is in his 30s, and yeah, he's one of many that seem to be that age group. They don't go to bed before 1 or 2 in the morning, and even later. And I'm wondering if, like you say, it's due to anxiety. And I do see that in the younger generation really doesn't have much hope. They know their jobs will change overnight, or he's in high tech. So, you know, it's a good place to be, but it can, yeah, it just changes like crazy. So do you have any recommendations? I'm working on him to bring him back to God, to Jesus, and I think I'm getting there, taking baby steps. But yeah, any insights would be helpful. Thank you.
Well, you continue to cover him as a mum, and have those conversations with him. I just want to share this. For those of us that have children, I have found the greatest breakthroughs that I've been able to have for my children is what I do in silence, and the little seeds that I drop in the conversations that they open up to me. Now, my kids understand the spirit realm. They've been taught it from the moment they were born. They understand who I am. But at the end of the day, it's their choice. They always have free will, as we all do. So it's, you know, part of what your son's going through, Sandra, is he's looking to this world to sustain him. You know, his job is his provision. You know, it's his purpose. And see, this is the switch. This is exactly what we're talking about. If this world is what shows, you know, gives you your purpose, then you're missing the fullness of what can be in your life. You know, people freak out. They freak out about everything at the moment. Fear is just rampant. So is chaos. So is miscommunication. So is deception. There are voices out there that concern me greatly with what they're trying to bring from the spiritual realm. They're coming across as though they're, you know, moving in the new, but they are not. They are coming from the wrong side of the fence. And it concerns me greatly. And I talk to God about this often. But this is where we've got to bring them to peace. Go and ask them, who is your provider? Who is the one that sustains you? Who is the one that directs your path? And so often things can blow up and people are, you know, going crazy because they're in fear. But often things that bring change is often God's hand moving you forward or bringing you up. This is that trust factor that a lot of people don't have with God. They can quote his promises. They can quote, you know, everything that the Bible says, but they don't have the trust in his character, you know, in his promises that he will sustain you. He will never let you fall. And when we keep coming back to that foundation and let it grow stronger and deeper, he's always with you. Whether you're asleep, whether you're awake, he's always with you. He doesn't shut off. He works 24/7 from now to beyond eternity. And people are freaking about AI. Well, AI is input in, input out. Who's giving AI the information? We're giving AI the information. AI cannot supersede us because it wasn't created by God. We were created by God. We are the ultimate intelligence. We are the ultimate power. Everything that's happening is another big scaremongering aspect. So, Sandra, just keep praying for him. Keep holding him in the spirit. Keep asking God. In other words, partner with God to draw your son back into the understanding of God. God has been so misrepresented, particularly to the young people. And the young people, because my kids are in their 30s as well. So they are very discerning. They're calling out the deception way quicker than what we ever did in our day because circumstances are different. But ultimately, God is moving on their behalf. And when they have kids, their kids are going to be different again because every generation is wired slightly differently. That's how God created us. We have a DNA signature that moves from generation to generation, but it also advances from generation to generation. And part of what I'm talking about here is we're clearing our DNA signature. We're clearing our spiritual signatures. We're moving anything that is counterintuitive to your relationship with God and who you are in it. Again, I'll ask, is there any more questions? I'll just quickly go through how to break these addictions. I won't go in depth. We'll do that again another time. But the number one thing is identify the original wound. In other words, what was I running from? What was this helping me avoid or soothe? In other words, why was I doing the behavior? Why was I trying to soothe? When did I first need it? When did I first find out that I needed to go shopping? I guess what? That was passed down. That's a generational one, that one. And who taught me that this was normal? Okay. Break the contract. All right. Say this firmly. I break and release the contract of the addiction and name it. I no longer need this pattern in my life to cope, survive, or feel safe. I reclaim my will, my power, and my freedom. All ties to dependency dissolve now. This is cutting the contract, the energetic and spiritual tie to contract. This is where we can cut soul ties as well. So I just feel to say this, particularly for you, Al, if there is a soul tie, an emotional tie to lack of sleep or sleep deprivation, then cut that. If it's been programmed from being in the services, then you can cut that and break that energetic pattern that you've been taught, because it no longer serves you. Okay, you're not in that environment anymore, so then you can break it. Now, the most important thing is replace the contract. Whenever we're taking something out, we've got to put something good back in to replace it. You can replace it with strength and clarity, self-control. Bring your mind and body into alignment with the Spirit of God, with freedom and well-being. And then I am safe. This is a lot of people need to hear this. I am safe without that addiction. Or can we say, I am safe in the hands of God and I trust him. This brings in a new pattern. It brings in a new way of thinking. Okay. It also starts to bring healing to your body. It brings an identity shift and it brings emotional integrity. If one thing I have to say this, God is looking for integrity. When we are integral, the things that aren't integral, he'll show. He'll tell you. He'll guide you through the breakthrough. We don't have to go looking for it. All we have to do is partner with him to be aware of it. The questions that you've asked today is an awareness. And that helps us deal with the issues, deals with the problem. Tapping into God, getting the answers, seeking wisdom. If you feel that you need comfort, ask God for comfort. He desires to comfort us. He desires to nurture us. He desires to, embrace us. A lot of people struggle with the thought of God even giving you a hug. And they break barriers. I had to learn to do that. I had to learn to let God embrace me. Embrace my heart. We all do, because of the way we've been programmed. And we're here to break out of that. We're here to come into a deeper wholeness and deeper truth of God and who we are in him, and who we are in him is the truth that we will continually seek and continually talk about, because it is paramount. Because when you get that foundation right, you can stand and withstand anything, anyone, any entity, any circumstance, any situation you can face, because you know that you are never alone in it.